Okay, everybody, we're going to do these question and answer. So we get so many questions all the time. Most of the time, we can answer them on an email and some texts we get. I don't really have much to do with that side of things, but you know, we sit down of an evening, Rhea and I, and we go through things, and she'll always send you back an answer. Sometimes you can't answer because unless you can put your hand on the horse or actually physically be there and see the horse, it's very difficult. Okay, I'll just, what happens here when I'm doing this filming is the camera started up and then Rhea disappears and leaves me to it and goes and does whatever she's doing. And because she's disappeared, I've been able to make a cup of coffee with Coffee Mate, which is another avenue of pleasure that's been closed off. So she don't know, so I'm enjoying this. Right, we've had a question or an inquiry, some advice really wanted on Alison Greystone from Belgium. She wants to know where she could get, or how would she go about making, I presume, a stone boat. Well, a stone boat was basically a sledge. They're very, very easy to make. And I'm going to do a very, very simple drawing. I'm going to do it upside down just to show you how I would make one. There's different ones. What they were for, they drag them across a field with a horse and they would pick up the stones. It happened a lot in Hampshire actually, where I live years and years ago. So they would move the bigger flints. It's very, very flinty, or Hampshire diamonds as they're known here. So basically what a stone boat, that's what it's for, is to move stone. Now, you've got to be careful when you try and generalise everything, because there were stone boats and there were stone boats. There were stone boats that was with dressed stone for buildings, yeah? And they'd put them on a stone boat. I think the reason they done that, I believe the reason they done that, is obviously going downhill, it was much easier to slow it up and stop it than it would be necessarily on a wagon. But a stone boat basically is one that's used in fields for clearing, as I understand it. My conception of it is that. So I'm just going to put this here, I think you can see it okay. It's about there. So a stone boat would have a metal piece like that. Roughly it would be 1/2 inch thick, so it would take some time wearing. It would be in the form of a sledge, yeah. They normally come up and roll back a bit there. Then you've got a piece of oak on there, and it needs to be oak or a good hardwood, yeah. This is sometimes bolted through, but it's fixed through here with some sort of fitting there. Let's get my other pen, it might be better. So if we do that round with that, this stone boat. So okay, now with this one, I'll just draw these. Now these sometimes come straight through. I've seen ones that are that old, they were made out of handmade nails, driven through and then bent over on the top of the timber. The rough size of the timber would be this. That would be the timber with your piece of metal on the bottom, yeah? With some form of fixing coming through there and into the timber. I've seen them, as I say, come right up and been bent over on real old ones. What I would say is you have to get the pull right, you know, the line of draft right. So obviously this is the ground level here, so you want to be there. It would be all right, please, it wouldn't tip up or anything or lift at the back because the thing itself is quite heavy, but for a pull you want to have a hole through here, is normally what they do, and a bar passes through there to the other side, yeah. Then all we have on top here are planks going across. They're not normally very wide, about, if I draw it with this bigger one you might see it better. So there's the planks there coming through, and these are fixed. Again, they come up to about there. So, and these are the planks going across the stone boat. So obviously, if I draw that like that, they come across here to the other side. I don't know, I'm not very good at this upside down drawing. So there, so that's a stone boat. Now what I would say is, to my way of thinking, the best one I've ever seen, and one I've actually used, had a, just here, it had a timber, in fact I can draw that over the top of that, so had a timber coming up there. I think it was around 3 by 2, you know, 3 inches by 2 inches. It was fixed through there, and then it had a brace coming down here, roughly speaking, and that was fixed there and there. So I'm just going to line that in a little bit so you can see it. Down to there. These were very good for collecting logs. You know, you could say you do logs and you bring them home, you saw them up, you bring them home, you're doing some reasonably straight stuff you could put on. But the reason I like these ones much better is up here you would have a series of boards. So if I draw that for you there, that would be coming up off of the sleigh at the bottom here, yeah, with the big pieces of timber on the bottom with the metal runner on, i.e. this piece. If I draw it like that again, might be better. So a little square on the bottom, that's the runners on a sled, and your boards going across, yeah? And here, you'd have it down there about 3 inches down. It would have either a timber, but a lot that I've seen have been a bar, iron bar going across there, passing through the timber and fixed in some way at this point up here. So I'll just bring that back a bit now so I get it on the film. So let's just go through that. Large piece of steel on the bottom, flat steel called strapping, about 1/2 inch thick, on a big square of oak, and the boards fixed across. Obviously you're going to fix the boards in the best way possible, and you could fix the boards first and then put the metal on if you wanted to, so that you could take them, try it through and bend them off, bury them in the timber and then put the other one across. So then this structure coming up the side, and obviously you'd have one the other side. So if I was to draw this now coming towards you, our stone boat would look like this, yeah, with the boards coming across all the way down and coming out the back, which is the most important thing, yeah. Now, I think I've drawn it, I hope you get that, I can understand. So these are the planks, so this area here you could stand on, and I think that's very important for the horse, because if you stand on there, it's added weight, true, but once these are rolling along, or let's say sliding along, they're not that hard to pull. Quite surprising. There's still some around farmyards now. It's quite surprising. I mean, they're a big thing. I suppose they're normally 3 foot wide, maybe a bit wider, and certainly around the 5 to, so depending what part of the country, they would be wider. I've seen one up in Cumbria that was used to bring stone up to men walls, you know, and had a fell pony doing it, or a Dales, can't remember now. Anyway, you could stand on the back here. Now the reason I like to stand on, when you're going out and coming home, right, and your horse needs to trot on a bit, if you're standing on here, you never gob him in the mouth with the bit, because it's so easy to stumble on a field, you know, and you give him a jerk in the mouth. Well, he don't deserve that. He's doing his job and doing his best to do it. So that's what I would say. Where this bar comes through here, it's normally got a ring on to keep it central, yeah, that you would put your swingle tree onto that. so the horse can move nicely on his shoulders, even when he's wearing a full collar. And he'll pull that round sideways, he'll do it. You've got to know how to use one. And this little bit at the top here is a good thing to have your reins and just loop them over there, you know, and let them just hang over the top here, over here, look, for instance, yeah. And that's, if I'll turn that way, you can understand why. Just put them over here. Two reasons. Obviously, if you're picking up stones, you're in mud and wetness and like that. Therefore, you go to pick the reins up, they're soaking wet because you left them laid on the ground. You haven't got the grip or the control of the horse. But that's basically a stone boat. Doesn't take much to make. You can definitely use green timber to make it, you know, freshly cut oak. That's not a problem at all. The ones I've seen, some of them have had actual joints, mortise and tenon joints, when they've joined two bits of timber together. You know, you've had that sort of idea, you know, that sort of joint called a mortise and tenon joint, that you put them together. And others have been, you know, just bolted together. But the most ones I've seen, because they're an old thing now, because as soon as the tractor come along, they had a little link box on the back on a grey Fergie back in the 30s, didn't they? So they would pick it up with that. I think 30s is right, maybe a bit later than it. And they would pick it up and use that. So they got left out, you know, they never got used. But that's a stone boat, and I think they're an excellent thing. But they're good for so many things. I mean, just imagine if you had this, yeah, there's nothing stopping you putting a couple of barrels of hay on there, even water, yeah, to take down to your horse. Which I've been a firm believer in, the more you use your horse, the better the horse will be. And I would always have horse to chain arrow, you know, chain arrow your field when it's been on there. You can have a spiked arrow to pull out all the old dead grass. I don't really understand all the terms for it, but you can pull out all the old dead grass. I've certainly used a pair of horses, not only cobs, to, you know, sweep hay up in a field, sweep it up with a big rake, gather it up, and then we had a baler standing there. Something had gone wrong with the tractor, that's why we done it, and then we had the baler on the back. We'd drive the baler, but it wouldn't drive itself along, so we swept all the hay and forked it in and had all the bales coming off lovely. So yeah, so I think they're a very, very good thing to have. And if you need to clear, but you could pick your logs up, I mean, anything will go on the platform, obviously. Bales of hay, feed, and your horse is working at the same time. Also, if you're picking up ragwork, you know, pulling ragwork and forking it up, you know, as long as you've got something to restrict your horse going down and grazing, you know, while you're doing it, you go around, fork it up, chuck it on, why not? You're going to use a barrow to do it, or a quad bike and a trailer, or, you know, if you've got that much, you might use a tractor. But if you can use your horse, I'm a firm believer, I don't care whether the horse is used for pleasure driving or what's it, give it a job. All horses like to work as long as they understand what's required, yeah? And you're spending time with them, aren't you? You're working together, you form a lovely partnership. There's some old films on there, there's a lovely film on there on YouTube of, which is only the same thing. I mean, the horse is not quite sure what it's pulling behind, is he? He knows it's dragging across the ground or it's got wheels on, he can obviously work that out. But Ree's doing one there with a nice horse, a 3-year-old stallion horse, and she's snagging timber with it. So she's bringing timber up, and we're training the horse to do this, and it brings the timber up and stacks it up, pulls big, you know, fairly big, briggish trunks like that over the top of another one. That's quite an interesting film to watch. And that's the first time Ree had done that, and only the second time the horse had done it. But he snatched on quick, and he got the idea of what was what, and went to work really well. So yeah, that's the stone boat. Used for a multitude of things. It wasn't only used for picking up stones, but it's much like a sledge, I suppose, that they put huskies on, where you stand behind. The reason I say it's good to stand behind is when you're going down, you're not hanging on that horse's mouth, because you're standing on that, so you're going the same speed as the horse is going. Do you see what I mean? Or pony, come to that. You know, I've seen some of these actually. I'm just trying to think. Certainly up in Cumbria, and Westmoreland, I've seen a few, and they'd have Dale's ponies on them, you know, Dale's ponies. You say, well, Dale's pony never pull it. Well, you only load it to what the horse can pull, can't you? Obviously, if you're coming downhill, we'd be twisted. But also with these, they'll stop coming downhill, won't they? You know, you'd have to be very, very steep and extremely wet for that to slide down. And even if it did, you just turn your horse to one side and let it come onto its side. But the other thing, standing on there at the back, excellent idea. So you just hold your weight against this bar and drive him, you know, nice. So that's a stone boat, easily made. And when you say to me, well, how big do you have to make it? You make it as big as you need. I mean, obviously, I've seen some in America, well, they were massive, but they were for a team or a pair of horses. They call them a team out there, but a pair of horses, a pair of big Belgian drafts or Percherons or whatever. And they go around, but you don't only see them used for that. They'll use them for anything at all where it can be used. Why not use it? You know, it doesn't have to have wheels on, does it? So that's what they do. You do have a lot of sledges out there that the Amish people use. So they'll have they'll take the wheels off and they'll put skids on. So a great big vehicle for feeding horses in the winter or cattle. They'll load it up with 50, 60 barrels of hay, more. And they'll go around out on them big flat open ground and they'll have just a sledge like that going through because it's better than wheels. Yeah, so they just take the wheel off, and where the wheel fits on, they've got the same sort of fitting to put a skid on, you know, like that. So, yeah, that's a stone boat. I hope that answers your questions about that. We've had 2 people asked about that, I think, or 3. So, yeah. I hope that's all right. That's for Alison Greystone in Belgium. Lovely.